Diana, the world's most photographed woman. From the moment she became engaged to Prince Charles, she became public property. Her every move lived out in the glare of the cameras. In life, this thoroughly modern princess fought against the repressive straitjacket of the royal family. And in death, she almost destroyed it.
It's not an exaggeration to say that 1997 ranks with the abdication crisis as a moment when the survival of the British monarchy was almost in question.
Nine years ago, Princess Diana was killed in a car crash in Paris, along with her lover Dodi Al-Fayed and driver Henri Paul. She'd been fleeing the paparazzi photographers she'd courted most of her adult life. News of the accident filtered through to Britain in the early hours, and confirmation of her death came soon afterwards.
We have a flash here saying that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car crash in Paris.
The news caused a wave of emotion unprecedented in modern Britain. Millions who'd never met her felt as if they knew her, and they wanted to make their grief public.
Diana was not un-British, but she was unroyal, because Diana was raw and young, and she showed her emotions, and she cried, and she stamped her foot, and she threw herself down the stairs, and she had all this emotion that the royal family, oh my goodness, what do we do with that? You know, that was Diana through and through, and that's what she was in death as well for us.
The newly elected Prime Minister, Tony Blair, instinctively understood what the reaction would be. He and his spin doctor, Alistair Campbell, had already demonstrated their expert grasp of the public mood. Now came the chance to reflect it.
Before most people had even heard of it, they both understood that this was going to be a huge event. It was going to have a huge impact on public opinion, and it was going to have a huge impact on the monarchy.
I feel like everyone else in this country today, utterly devastated.
Campbell wrote the line, and the Prime Minister delivered it on live TV, the phrase by which Diana would be remembered to this day.
She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain.
I think he did hit the right note. You've got to remember how people felt punched in the gut by the death of Diana. It was an emotional time. I think he was right to acknowledge those emotions.
It was pretty extraordinary. After all, at times of national mourning and grieving and great national crisis, people have historically always looked to the head of state, the Queen, to be the spokesperson for the nation's emotions and feelings. And there, just on the morning after this tragedy, Tony Blair's already taken on that role.
Some accused Tony Blair of trying to steal attention from the royals, but the reality was different. They'd chosen to stay put at their Scottish retreat Balmoral and paid no public tribute to Diana. Even when they went to church that same morning, along with the young princes William and Harry, Diana's name didn't feature.
Everyone expected that there'd be some mention of the princess, but there was nothing at all. That was unbelievable, I remember. And it went on. They just handled it, well, rather like, I suppose it seemed to us, like ostriches with their heads in the sand, and hoped that we wouldn't notice that they hadn't paid public tribute.
One of the strengths of our royal family, I believe, is that they are not PR obsessed. Often when the Queen's press office says something to her, she says, "I'm not a performer, no stunts, thank you very much." And in the long term, that's a strength. But at this particular moment in their history, they could have done with a very firm public relations hand, the sort of hand we saw working in Downing Street with Tony Blair.
The relationship between monarch and premier, and the strains it underwent in the days after Diana's death, are the subject of a new film, The Queen, starring Helen Mirren. Based on the accounts of Palace and Downing Street insiders, It portrays that week as the biggest threat to the British monarchy for centuries.
Action!
According to the film, Tony Blair made repeated requests for the Queen to make a public statement. These came in a series of phone calls to Balmoral.
Good morning, Your Majesty.
Prime Minister?
May I say right away how very sorry I am.
But his requests that she bow to public and press demands were politely ignored.
No, certainly not.
Some of the things Tony Blair and Downing Street were suggesting up the line to Balmoral were very heavily public relations based. And that just didn't go down with the Queen well, and it's the sort of thing that causes her to dig in her heels.
The Queen always does everything by the book. It's the way her father did it, it's the way she was taught to do it. And in times of mourning, the royal family are private, and they always have been.
The film claims Blair was worried about growing media hostility towards the royals. In a bid to diffuse it, he raises the idea of a full state funeral. But once again, his opinion is brushed aside.
I don't suppose anyone's had time to think about the funeral yet.
Well, we've spoken with the Spencer family, and it is their wish, it is their express wish, that this should be a private funeral.
Right.
And given that Diana was no longer a member of the royal family, we have no other choice but to respect their wishes.
9 years on, opinion is divided as to who was right in these conversations.
I think it is absolutely true that Tony Blair, in those conversations with the Queen, where he's trying to persuade her that the royal family have to come out of their seclusion in Balmoral, he did get very, very frustrated.
It wouldn't be the Prime Minister talking to the Queen, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Nobody would tell the Queen she's got to do this and she's got to do that. Now, there are those who will criticise her, saying that perhaps she didn't get it all right at the time of Diana's death, and she didn't come down, but she did the right thing by staying up at Balmoral with William and Harry.